So, I guess let's just get into it. And we might as well start with best girl in the game, which is Rek'Sai. And this is like, I really like this art. Like, this is really cool art, and there's a couple of things going on here. So, if you remember when we talked about the previous expansion, we will have talked about Malphite and his splash. In fact, let's just bring up Malphite. I've got him right here somewhere. And the way that scale is communicated with Malphite, right? And one of the things that artists like to do when they need to communicate scale is to include something which we understand intuitively how big it is for scale in order to really communicate the size of the thing. So, in Malphite's splash art here, you have these two little human mountain climbers, the mountain sojourners, standing down there looking up at him, and they are essentially human beings for scale. Like, helping sell the monumental, overwhelming size of Malphite as this living mountain creature. So Rek'Sai is not quite that big, but she is pretty large, and in order to really sell just how large and overwhelming Rek'Sai is supposed to be in the lore, we get, well, all these poor llamas? Alpacas? What the hell are those? All these poor creatures being thrown around, and these foolish little Shirimans getting thrown every which way. Just being in the picture, because without them, if there had been no human figures, no animals, no anything, and it was just like sand and rocks and Rek'Sai bursting out, you wouldn't have that sense of, oh, this is a kaiju. Like, you wouldn't have that sense of, oh shit, there's a kaiju coming and we're all gonna die. You would have this, oh, she's monster sands. So the human beings help with that. As for framing, that's something that's actually not very present in this artwork. If you've been along to these streams before, you will know that framing is a thing that like happens in pretty much every other goddamn card. Includes some kind of frame. For example, in LeBlanc, you can see that her chair, her throne that she's sitting on, acts as a kind of frame within the frame, like a little shape within the composition that marks out her position in the center. That's not really a thing with Rek'Sai. There isn't really this sort of structural element to the image that frames the character. She just dominates the picture by being really big, but also by having a weird color, because everything else in this image is bright blue skies and then there's lots of grays and browns. Like, even the prospectors and the animals and the camels and stuff, they're all wearing like browns and reds and the sort of like muted earth tones that aren't very saturated. Like, there's not that much color on them. And then Rek'Sai bursts out like just this thing sheathed in bright purple, like really just kind of standing out and contrasting with the entire environment. And that helps draw attention to her in the center of the frame as the most important thing to pay attention to. And that's actually harder than it seems to pull off, because human beings are like our brains want to look for faces. They want to see faces. Like, if there's a face in an image, the human brain will gravitate towards it and try and read it, try and read its expression, try and understand, like, what's going on with it. So if you pay attention to the NPCs, like the little people that are being thrown around here, you don't really ever get to see a visible face on any of them. Like, you can sort of kind of maybe make out, like, the dude down here, sort of, like, maybe there's a little bit of expression, but there isn't, like, a clearly visible. The only visible face, really, we get is the camel llama creature down here screaming in terror at what's going on, which is just a hilarious face. So, like, the artist is paying attention to, like, how do you manipulate the audience into seeing the parts of the image that we want them to see? How do we get them to pay attention to the things we want them to pay attention to? And one of the things you do is you don't put a really clearly identifiable protagonist character in there that could compete with the monster. So, a couple of super chats. Hey Skyn, as the League of Legends universe expands, will we get less champion redesigns since there are more games to change? Well, I don't know, actually. Like, but that's like a legitimate concern that, like, now that we have Legends of Runeterra and Wild Rift and, like, Teamfight Tactics and, like, so many things that depend on it. Like, if they wanted to do a full redesign of Aurelia, would they be able to do it? Because they'd have to redesign her visually in, Legends of Runeterra as well. And, like, with Zillion, who really desperately needs a rework, if they did a rework of him, where they like fundamentally change his abilities, they might also have to change his mechanics in the game. Like if all of a sudden he doesn't have time bombs anymore in the base game because they've just decided to retcon those out or whatever, then having him have time bombs is like a problem. So like, yeah, I think it does create a certain, like it creates a certain pressure that Riot will probably have to respond to, but I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem. Like Riot makes $1.5 billion a year. I don't think they're strapped for like cash or manpower. Right, Pickmayor, love your content, listening to this while I'm gaming with the boys. Thank you very much, that's kind of you. So, again, pretty much the same thing that happened in the previous picture. We have human beings for scale, and we have, like, this avoidance of showing a clear face. Like, you can kind of make out the face of this guy, sorta, but not really. We have bright, saturated colors that are pretty much exclusive to Rek'Sai's purple flesh, whereas everyone else is kind of muted and drab. And then there's just the fact that Rek'Sai is way, way bigger in the image. Like, she's just completely dominating, like, 80% of this entire image is just Rek'Sai. Which, of course, makes her the main subject of the image. It's kind of impossible to get around her. And there's also some slightly subtler stuff happening. Here, we have a little bit of a framing device. You can see these cliff sides, like this sort of valley that comes down here, that sort of creates, like, here down on the ground with the little tiny humans that are running away, you have this sort of barrier here, where in this little tiny itty-bitty squashed down portion of the image, that's where the humans are, where they're like where they're not being thrown around and killed. And anywhere above that, up here, this is Rek'Sai's domain. Any humans that enter here are gonna get, well, they're gonna get yeeted, and then they're gonna get eated. Because this is where Rek'Sai dominates, this is where she's in control. So her power, visually, is being shown to us just by mere fact of how much space she dominates, and the fact that anytime a human being or any other character enters her space, they are lifeless ragdolls being thrown through the air, and she is the character that's in control, that's active. She's the subject of the image. I also kind of like this art for the call to pack. I have a fondness for like when you use like the extreme symmetry of like a hole in the ground to create this sort of spiraling, swirling cascade of teeth crawling out of the earth. This is a nice little piece of art. Right. What do you think of the new audiovisual leaks? I haven't seen them, so I have no opinion. Do you agree with Richard Lewis's take that Riot is a cult? I don't agree with Richard Lewis on much of anything. And that man can go to hell, as far as I'm concerned. Right. Will you do level up animations too? Not on this stream, so if that's what you're here for, I'm sorry. That's not going to be happening. I might make a video about it someday, but not now. Right, so Echo and his crew, and this is actually interesting. This is an interesting champion splash art, because like most champion splash arts, they are just about the champion, right? Like Talia is another one that has kind of a similar situation going on, where it's a group picture, which Talia and then like the rock surfer and her friends, because she has this very much this sort of family vibe thing going on. But most champions, most times, even if there are other characters present in their image, they are not like characters in the image. They're not like really, they're not really parts of the storytelling. They're not really parts of what's going on. The champion, the art for the card for a champion tends to focus on the champion as the central character. Echo is interesting because he's kind of not the central character of the image. He is essentially like a bit player on equal footing with everyone else. And if you look at the composition of the image, there's a couple of things happening. Like Echo has his big bright clock hand bat thing that he's got there, playing it like an electric air guitar. That's big, bright, and blue, and it glows, and it sheds light on him, and it creates this big, bright point of interest in a scene that's otherwise mostly green and kind of dark. So that draws some attention to him. Then there's the lines. You see the lines of the clock tower that they're sitting on, like the way that the perspective kind of funnels your eye towards him. And then there is a little bit of framing. Specifically, you can see how his companion Kay here, I believe she's called Kay, and the little sumpwork guy, we'll get to him, Bo, they call him. They sort of create this this center stage space for Echo to occupy, that all draws attention to him and like helps you get the sense that, okay, this like we should look this way. The other thing that also does it is that the other two characters, the ones that are the largest, the ones that are in the foreground, are looking at him. They're not, again, this thing about faces, right? Oh, the music is a bit loud. I can turn it down. Better? The other two, like these two characters that are in the center, that are in the foreground of the image, that are the largest, are looking towards him. So their eye lines are also telling the viewer, like, oh, what are they looking? And yep, look over at Echo, right over there. So there's a lot of compositional stuff going on that helps draw our attention to the Time Boy, but he's not the absolute central character in the image. Like, the entire image is not about him. It's about him and his group of friends goofing around, playing about on the top of the clock tower here, which is going to be relevant to the storytelling of the cards. So we have Shumi here, who is one of his follower cards. They are down here somewhere. There, the drop border. Who, according to the writer, I believe is a non-binary character, which I think is cool. And we have, God damn it, can't remember what their name is. Like, they're the one who's following the drop border around. But they're characters that have been invented to essentially be Echo's friend group, because very much part of his storytelling, part of who Echo is as a character, is that he is this street kid from Zaun who just loves his city and loves being there and loves hanging out with his friends and like who just kind of enjoys being a Zaunite. And so they have this friend group around him that kind of shows what's his attachment to Zaun. Well, he loves the people there. Like, he has this eclectic group of cool friends that he hangs out with, and they do cool kid stuff, like skate around, or like do time travel manipulation and mess around. And so you get, from this image, you get that storytelling about who Echo is as a character. Like, this is what he's about. Just as much as Rek'Sai is all about being out in the desert and eating people, this is what Echo is about. This is what his life is. This is what drives him. This is what he cares about. And this is just like excellent visual storytelling, because like you get the sense that these kids are having fun, right? Like, you get the sense that this is a bunch of teenagers goofing around, screwing about, doing stuff that's probably kind of stupid and dangerous, but getting away with it because they're young. Like, you do get that sense of a friend group just hanging out and goofing off and like fucking around and being kids, which I think is just lovely. And like, I gotta say, like, the character designs on these companions, we'll get to that once we get to the cards. They're excellent. Like, they're so colorful, they're so distinctive. They are not more outrageous than Echo. Like, they don't steal the entire spotlight from him. But they feel like, you know, they could compete on equal footing. Like, if one of these were made into a champion, I wouldn't complain. Because, like, they could be cool. They'd need to be updated to be a little bit more flashy, but they could be cool. And I really like that as a character design thing. For the image. And also just like, this is a really gorgeous background painting. Like, look at the detail on the clock here in the background. Like, look how finely rendered all those gears and pieces are. Like, this is some really, really fine. I wonder if they did that with 3D rendering and then painted over it. This is some really fine rendering on a really complex mechanical piece. And I just think that's really cool. That's really well done. And I love the perspective. Like, you get a sense of just how big the Undercity is, right? Like, how big these buildings are, how tall, how deep. It's just a really, like, this is a picture that makes me want to hang out in Zaun, even though it's poisonous and deadly and someone will probably kill me immediately. It's just a nice vibe. Like, the vibes of this picture are just fantastic. And then here we have the second part of the storytelling, which is that, oh, wait, they hung out on top of a clock tower, which is probably kind of dumb. And now, well, one of them is falling down, and Echo is using all of his time travel powers to rescue their stuff, rescue their bag, rescue their glasses, grab all their things, and eventually rescue them out of the air. Echo can't fix everyone's mistakes, but that'll never stop him from trying again and again and again and again. Oh, didn't mean to do that. And so here, remember what I said about framing when we were talking about Rek'Sai? Yeah, here you can see a little bit of that framing coming through. We have this crossbar over here. And then we have this one down here, leading into this one over here, which creates this sort of rectangular trapezoid frame in the middle of the image that Echo then occupies as the central character. There's also light, like he's literally highlighted by light that falls on his character. Now, I'm not 100% sure about the perspective in this image. I think the foreshortening is maybe a little bit off. I feel like his body looks kind of weirdly elongated, and I'm not sure the proportions work with his arm. Actually, the more I look at this, I feel like they made his head way too big. And that's a little unfortunate. Not a big deal, but, you know. Right, as someone is pointing out in chat, there's the picture of Echo's friend there. That is the... let's see if I can find them, actually. Because they're in the Foundations pack. This is the Sump Snipe Scavenger. And the Sump Snipe Scavenger is Echo's friend. They were, like, a street kid from Zon that made prosthetics and, like, helped out animals and had this little friend group of animals that they were just hanging out with and being just a really kind, angelic, pleasant child. And then they were murdered. They were murdered by some Piltover scumbag, I think it was, and Echo couldn't get to them in time and couldn't save them. And that's part of Echo's announcement was that he got a comic that told the story about how one of his friends was taken away from him like that. So, you know, that's bad. That fucking sucks. Sorry to bum you out there. And what we can see here is a little Easter egg that in their bag, this character had a sketch, like a drawing of their friend that they carry around with them. So yeah. Bummer. But yeah, framing, we have some color. Echo's collar, which is one of the things about his character design that like makes him a bit more of a champion character, is that he has this bright red collar that just kind of stands out and draws your attention, especially in a place like Zon, where everything is like purple and green pretty much. Then you have this bright red collar on Echo that draws your attention straight to him and like makes him a central character in the image. And then there's the face, of course. Like if we saw the face of the fallen character, first of all, that might be a little bit much because you'd see like the fear in their eyes, like screaming as they're falling down. That might be a bit much. But also it would distract from Echo as the central character here. Here, Echo, this is not a group picture of a group of people hanging out. This is a picture of Echo being a hero. Echo doing his thing and saving someone who needs saving. So he needs to be the central character here, which is why there's only one face. And Echo's another lovely bit of his character design is, of course, the hourglass that he has on the front of his face. That makes him stand out immediately, which is just a very well put together thing. I still think their perspective in this image is borked. Like, I feel like his upper torso should be bigger and, like, yeah, like the legs and the hips should be smaller, more distorted into the space to really justify how big his head is there relative to his arm. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Like it's not like it ruins the image, it's just a little nitpick. Oh, Amelia Strange sends a super chat. Hey, Sky, in all of the regions that have been getting more lore over the last few years, which one do you think has improved the most? Freljord. The Freljord. And specifically because someone we talked about in the last one of these streams, which is Dear Lizzie here. Lysandra has been expanded so much as a central linchpin character of the Freljord, along with like the Ash comic that really deepens the relationship between Ash and Sejuani and kind of lays out the stakes for that region. And then there's the Volibear and Ornn updates, like especially the Volibear update, which did a lot to deepen Udyr and his lore, which set him up for the rework that he's getting. Like, the Freljord generally has, like, I think the most compelling storyline in the game, at least in terms of how much they have developed it. Piltover and Zon could probably overtake them with Arcana once that comes out in the fall. Sentinel Pike makes no sense, he's already did. Yeah, I don't know how they're justifying making Pike a Sentinel, except that he's a popular character, I guess. It's a little weird. It's a little odd. And like, but Riot are, like, with the whole thing about the Sentinel skills, the whole thing about the Sentinel skins is that, as far as I know, as far as I can make out, the Ruined King game was supposed to have been out by now. Like, it was supposed to have been out, like, probably a couple of months ago. But then COVID happened, and then because Airship Syndicate, the studio, is in Texas, they got fucked by the massive power outage that hit during the winter storm last year. So, like, they just got hit, like, with a pandemic and then, like, a massive infrastructure disaster in Texas that completely fucked them on their progress and delayed the game they were making for, like, a long time. And my sense is that the Ruined King game was supposed to set up all this Sentinel stuff. Like, the game was supposed to come out, we were going to play it, and then by the end, some big thing would happen. Like, some big event would happen that would explain why, for example, Pike has been made a Sentinel, because he's a character in that game that would explain where Misfortune is, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, because of everything just getting fucked over like that, they kind of had to reschedule things on the fly. They had to really fuck around with the scheduling and try and make it work. And now I don't know when the Ruined King game is coming out. Like, hopefully before the season ends. But yeah, but we don't know. So who knows? Like, if I'm lucky, I might get to talk to some of the people at Airship Syndicate who are making the Ruined King game. If I'm lucky, and maybe I can get an interview or something. But we'll see about that. Let's hope Poppy gets a Sentinel skin. Yeah, like, I feel like she should, because she was there with Vayne when they found the Sentinel cache. So, surely. Pike is a ghost made by Nagakeeboros. No. No, actually. That's a common misconception about the lore. I used to think so, too. But no. Pike is not a servant directly of Nagakeeboros. Pike is a servant of these guys. Pike was taken by the Jawlfish, like a really massive, ancient, old Jawlfish, like a really kind of mystical, deep sea, horrifying Jawlfish. He was taken by them and taken to the depths, to the Swimming City, which is this mysterious, spiritual, ghostly sea realm way down in the deep sea. Like, it's some kind of power that is not connected directly to Nagakeeboros, as far as we know. But he is not a servant of Nagakeeboros. Like, Illaoi and him are not on the same team, as it were. I don't think they're enemies necessarily, but according to his lore, he's a servant specifically of the monsters of the deep sea, who are kind of pissed about being hunted for sport by the sailors of Bilgewater. Right then. Oh, greetings from Germany. Guten Tag. Will you learn about the deep? You will learn about the deep in Dark Souls 3. No spoilers, Male Jade. We'll get to Dark Souls 3, well, hopefully soon. Right, so, Pike and his splash art. And here we get another demonstration of a pretty simple way to create a main character in an image. Because Pike, here, is the brightest character on screen. Like, he has this direct little shaft of light from above on the surface, coming down, catching his shark tooth collar, and, like, sort of highlighting him in the center of the image. And it's not that there's no light on the fish that are following him around. It's not that there's no light on them, just that he's the brightest thing. He's the brightest object in the image, and so your eyes are immediately drawn to him. And that's one way to designate a main character, is just to put the light on them, literally spotlight them. Looks like the semifinal match will be England versus Denmark. Oh, God. Are we going to have to kick their ass again? We haven't forgotten. We have not forgotten that once upon a time, England was our property. Oh, God. Man, fucking hell. If we win, we're going to be insufferable. Like, oh, my God. I'm glad I don't interact with mainstream culture in this country. Please beat us. Please beat us, Soulstep. I don't want us to win. The last time we won was like in '88 or something, and like the whole country was just a fucking insufferable bunch of bastards for months. Like, I've heard the stories. I don't want us to win. Kick our ass. Anyway, there's some super chats. How do you feel about Lurk and Deep having terrible synergy with one another given the overlap of sea monster design? I think that's fine. Specifically because that's, like I said, Pike is not a servant of Nagakeeboros. He's not a servant of Nagakeeboros. He's not aligned directly with Nautilus and like the other creatures of the deep. So I think it's fine that their playstyles don't interact so well. Like, it would have been cool if you could make like a complete sea monster deck where like all the sea monsters get stronger with Lurk, and like that might have been cool, but I think it's fine. Like, I think it's fine that Bilgewater has like these two very different ways to play sea monsters. Like the one where it's like you build up these giant, massive, huge, enormous sea monsters that are just like these huge tanks that just come thundering out of the sea, these titans. And then the other one where it's like you have this ravenous horde, swarm of fish that just kind of attack and attack and attack and attack and attack. Like the whole free attack thing. Is Nautilus a servant of Nagakeboros? Yes, he is. But we don't know exactly what his connection is. As far as we know, he was not turned into the Titan of the Depths by Nagakeboros. Like, Nagakeboros didn't transform him into Nautilus, but he serves Nagakeboros. Like, he certainly believes that he does. Anyway, with the Sentinel skins being canon, are there any lore skins you'd like to see? I'd like to see Aatrox when he was an Ascended. Oh, yes. Like, Ascended Aatrox, like, pre-corruption Aatrox, pre-corruption Varus, I'd like to see as well. Like, any of the Darkened pre-corruption would be very cool. I'd love to see that. And I also, like, on the other side of the coin, I wouldn't mind seeing... I don't know that they'd be lore skins necessarily, but, like, I wouldn't mind seeing, like, a Darkened Nasus. I wouldn't mind seeing, like, a Darkened Azir. Like, if he gets to be King Emperor of Shurima for another 3,000 years, and we get to see what he would be like as a Darken after like, thousands of years of corruption, that might be pretty cool. I mean, Varus would have to be, like, a legendary skin at the very least. Certainly Slenda. Definitely. Anyway, oh, yeah, there is 1,000 people here. Hello, 1,000 people. 1,100 people, actually. 1,169 people. Nice. Hello. Welcome along. I hope you're having a good time. Let's get back to Pyke. We were talking about him for a second a while back before I got distracted by super chats and stuff. Boy. Good grief. Right, so as I was talking about, he is a central character just because he's highlighted. Just because he's the brightest character in the image, your attention is immediately drawn to him. There's also a little bit of a very fun framing that I really like here. You see how Pyke's, like, his upper, the upper parts of his head above the bandana are... You see this tangent line of the teeth kind of leading directly into the teeth on his bandana. So it's kind of, there's sort of this synergy between them, as though Pyke is like a different form of the jawfish that's swimming back here. Like, there's this overlap between the open maw of the jawfish behind him that sort of creates the same shape as his body, like that hunched over posture that he's got. So there's this visual symmetry that I really like. That sort of, there's a little bit of visual storytelling that Pyke is like an extension of this, like that there is a connection between them, because he too has these giant teeth on his bandana. It's just a nice little way to frame it. Because normally you would want to avoid a tangent like that, because what a tangent does when there are tangent lines in an image, it tends to flatten an image. It tends to make things meld together, and usually you don't want that unless you are trying to visually do a little bit of storytelling about, hey, maybe these two things are, like, kind of flattened together. Maybe they are connected. Really kind of like that. Like, you can even see, like, that the spike on his boot here kind of pokes up and acts like a tooth in the jaw, in the maw of this giant jawfish. You really get that sense of, like, a visual connection between them, which I think is very cool. Like, it's just a nice little storytelling thing. But yeah, that's mainly the thing that makes Pyke the main character, is that he's highlighted. I really like the fish as well. I like the variety of fish that we see here. Like this is something like I harp on about on my goddamn channel, like 24/7, every goddamn hour, every video I put out, is like diversity. Design diversity is good. When there is diversity in design, everything gets better. Everything gets cooler. Look at these fucking cool-ass fish, man! Imagine if they'd all just been like the same fucking fish. Right? If it's been like this guy, and it was nothing but that guy over and over and over again. Fucking boring. Shit. Garbage. Throw it out with the trash. But no. There's different fish. There's this fish with like a little tiny mouth with teeth in it. And then there's this fish with a huge nose and big teeth. And then there's this thing with like an underbite that could like chew a Ford truck in half. And there's these little guys. These little piranha-looking motherfuckers up here. There's a little sailfish back there. This thing with this giant like spike on his nose. And then the giant jawfish. Like, it's cool. When there's diversity in design, when there's visual diversity in the ways that characters are constructed, even if they're just fucking fish, everything gets better. It looks nicer. It just becomes more interesting and more fun to look at. This is a better piece of art because there's design diversity in it. I also really like the floating sense of it. Like, how is Pike moving right now? I don't know. He's walking, I guess. Like, he's just walking through. How is he moving? He's just fucking floating. But I like that feeling. I like that there is this floating feeling that's created by these, like, long strands of kelp coming up from down below the seafloor. These hanging chains that kind of let us know that we're probably in Bilgewater Harbor and they're about to attack some ships or something that are hanging out there. It just gives this nice, like, sort of floating, quiet before the storm feeling. Like, you get this sense of, like, this is like, yeah, these things are ready to kill, but they're quiet right now. They're stealthing up on it. They're getting ready to launch the feeding frenzy, which is here. Here's where the feeding frenzy then actually happens. And, like, scary motherfucking thing to look at. So, again, I have a little bit of a nitpick with this image, which is that I feel like the rendering isn't quite complete. Like, I feel like in comparison with the quality of rendering that we see in, like, especially the lighting in the previous image, it's kind of weird that here they seem to be spotlighted with this really flat lighting, especially on Pike. He kind of looks a little flat here with the coloring. It feels a little bit unfinished to me, which I think is a bit of a pity, because this is a really cool scene. And Pike reeling you in for a nice big... Yeah, this is after Pike has thrown his skewer at you and, like, dragged you into the water to be consumed by his fancy little friends who are waiting for you. But, like, notice the moods. Like, take a look at the visual aesthetic of this image. What's the motion here? Like, what's the flow of motion in this image? And you can see the sea current. Like, you can see how the sea current is pulling on the chains. You can see how it's pulling on the kelp. So there's this sense of, like, a movement that's kind of like water is passing this way, and so the characters create this forward flow, and it's all very sort of symmetrical. Like, there's this flow of the characters from left to right. The seawater, like, moves the other way from right to left, and there's, like, this nice balanced flow of movement, which gives the image this, like, this peaceful quality, right? Compare and contrast with this, where we have, like, you have this skewer itself, like the rope that he's thrown, like, just kind of snaking its way through the image. We have this fish going this way, you have that fish going that way, you have giant fish in the background. Everything is chaos. The movement is going in every single possible direction at the same time, and it creates this sense of chaos, this sense of energy, this sense of things happening, like bodies moving in every possible direction, teeth everywhere, bubbles, everything is chaos, everything is wild. And that, again, just good visual storytelling. Oh, my avatar's covering up Streamlabs messages. Ah, fuck. Let me fix that. Let me fix that. Go. I need you to not be in the way of the artwork. Alert box. You. Thing that comes up. Go over here. There. That should do the trick. First he came for his old crew. Then other captains. Then cheaters, gamblers, and drunkards. Pike's craving for revenge slowly gave way to a newfound lust for murder. Now, instead of only listing those who once wronged him, his growing manifest only illustrates what Pike has become. And I'm kind of, like, in terms of lore, what I really liked about Pike, the way that he was originally conceived, is that after he was taken by the sinking city, he was sent back to the world with this list of people who betrayed him, right? And he's going through them, he's killing them off. But every time he kills someone, and he's like, okay, I finally killed everyone on my list, he looks at the list, and there's a new name there. Like, oh, shit, there's someone new there. There's a new name. And the names just kind of, it always seems to him that he's forgetting someone. Like, there's always one more. But he's not, but there's this sense that he's not really conscious that he's being, like, that he's constantly being fed more names to kill to fulfill his revenge. So he's this revenant with a never-ending quest for revenge who has long since killed everyone who was associated with his murder, but who, like, can't stop because the swimming city is feeding him more and more names. Like, it's constantly pushing him to take more and more revenge on behalf of, like, the monsters of the sea who are tired of being hunted by the captains of Bilgewater. Now, the way that they've retconned him here is that he seems to be kind of... No, he knows what he's doing. And he's like, he's much more active in this role. And I can see why they did it. Like, I can see why that they would want Pike to be more of an active, conscious agent, because like if he's mind controlled, if he's like a mind controlled wretch who's not fully in control of his actions, that can make him a less compelling character. Like it makes it harder to tell stories about him. It makes him harder for him to be an active force in his own story, and they need him to be one for stuff like the Ruined King game, and perhaps, like, I don't know if they have some narrative stuff that's coming up where they kind of need Pike to be an active character. So I can see why they did it, but it's just like, I thought that was such a cool concept, like this sort of like that his mind is every bit as fluid and liquid and swimming and kind of fucked up as the rest of him, that he's this ghost made of seawater whose aims are always sort of subtly shifting to one side or another. But anyway, like, it's fine. It's just like, I like the old concept better. So yeah, like, this is just a cool image. And again, the lighting is doing the work here. So we have the fish themselves, like these little 5 fish in the foreground are highlighted just as much as Pike is, because they're part of the image as well. But notice that Pike's upper body, like his torso, all the bare skin, it's pretty much uncovered, right? Like, there's nothing getting in the way of him. Whereas with the fish here, like, this guy over here is like, he's like way out in the middle of nowhere in the image with all the bubbles in front of him. This guy's like all the way over here. And then these guys are like overlapping each other, and kind of like this guy's jaw is a little bit cut off, and this guy's like sort of being pushed to the side by Pike himself. Pike is sort of the only character who really has, like, space and quiet around him enough that you can focus on him. And then, of course, there's the human bias towards looking for faces, towards looking for characters, people that we can relate to on some level, which helps draw our attention to Pike as the central character of the image. And that's also helped by the rope, which snakes its way down. And, like, even if you start by looking at the fish here, which you might, the rope will still take your eyes and kind of lead your eye line to our boy in the center here. So yeah, I wish the rendering was a little bit more complete, like, especially when I look at the fish scales up here. Like, it feels like kind of a sloppy rendering job. It feels unfinished. I wish it felt a little bit more complete, like that the rendering was a little bit more detailed, but compositionally, it's very cool. Right. Was there only 3 new champions? Yes, there's 3 new champions in the expansion. Not much to say about feral prescience, I don't think. I quite like this. Like, I like the use of color in this particular little artwork, because you have this like bright yellow eye right at the center of the image. That's sort of where you can see the madness in the face of the fish, and that's a really nice contrast, because you have this yellow, then you have a little bit of purple around it, and then you switch over to blue and green for the ocean aesthetic. And it's like, it just makes it really easy to see, even like in a small little tiny splash art like this one. You can see, oh, this is like some kind of berserker rage kind of thing that's going on. It's a good little way to do that. Right. How you doing, chat? What, the list? Oh, the list. You want me to... What about it? Like, there's not much to say. It's a dagger in a parchment, and you can see that Pike has scratched out names, and there's always more names left. Right. The writing. Oh, I can't read it? Like, I don't know how to read this. If someone knows how to read these like, Bilgewater runes, let me know, but I can't read it. What's the background music playing? It is the Sessions piece. Like, Riot recently created, like, a Riot Games music YouTube channel, and they put up a content-safe playlist of, like, lo-fi beats to reviews card skins too. Just use Google Translate. Oh yeah, I should have thought of that. He's making a list. He's checking it twice. No, it's not Echo. Show Me's a genius with that hoverboard. I once saw them switch the sump grinder into a bottom board backslide and then catch air with a 3-point triple dip or something. Look, the point is they're awesome, okay? Practical Perfectionist. And the Practical Perfectionist is a card that comes up later down the line. It's another one of Echo's followers. But yeah, for those who are observant, we have Fun Yip here, who's gonna come up later as the Fallen Feline, holding a Hextech crystal of some... Well, it's not a Hextech crystal, but a crystal of some kind that he drops as he gets sort of thrown around by these crazy kids running along. He gets saved by Echo. Don't worry about it. Echo pulls him out of it. But yeah, that is Fun Yip. Professor Fun Yip himself, who is also in a couple of Victor's cards, like follower cards, and who is also a companion, a board guardian that you can pick up. Oh, my head! Yeah, let me just... There we go. There he is. There he is. Got him now. Got him now. There he is. Right. So yeah, how do we know who's the main character of this image? Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, they're highlighted. Show Me here in the middle is highlighted. Second of all, they are the largest character on screen. Like, with the hoverboard especially, they take up pretty much like this entire... Not quite half, but like... More than, like, well over a third of the screen right here is just taken up, like, them dominating that space. Then the secondary character would be the other, the rollerblader back here. And then we have Echo, finally, who's a tertiary character in the image, with Fun Yip playing a tiny little supporting role as an Easter egg in the background. Echo is not much of a character in this image, specifically because we are seeing these after images. So we know that Echo is ahead, but these after images, as you can see, like, they wash out all his features. All of his, like, we can't really see his expression. We can't really get a sense of, like, oh, this doesn't seem to be a character who's present. This seems to be an after image or a ghost of where they once were. And so we default instead to looking for the face that we can see. And fortunately, we have two very big, bright, round things that approximate eyes. And the human brain is programmed to look for eyes. Like, this is a face on the same principle that a smiley is a face. It doesn't really matter that the eyes are not anatomically correct, because we have these two bright dots, then we have a nose, then we have a mouth. Oh, face! And so the brain understands that this is where we're going. Right? And then the secondary face you look at would be the rollerblader back here, and then you'd probably look at Fun Yip. Finally, you'll also be drawn in a line like this, down along. They're all LeBlanc. Yeah, they're all LeBlanc. And again, I'm covering up Fun Yip. I'll just put the VTuber avatar away for a second so you can see Fun Yip hanging out there. So you can see that there's like, oh, you look at her, or them, rather, and then you look at her, and then you look at him, right there. So you follow it down along this way, which works really well. Like, this is a really cool image. And again, I love the character design of Echo's followers. Like they're just all really distinct and interesting characters. Because you can see, like, from the character design alone, tell me what this girl likes to do. I believe that they are female. Tell me what this girl likes to do with her time. Well, rollerblade and graffiti. And you can just tell, because they've got the mask, like they've got the breathing mask, they've got the rollerblades, they've got like graffiti paint, very bright graffiti paint splashed all over. It's just good characters. Like, it's just good storytelling about how, like, what this character is and how they're put together. And one little detail I like, you see the little hourglass on their hood? Same symbol that Echo uses. That's just a nice little way to connect them together. And I just love this robot arm as well. Like this, let's go back to Echo's art because we get kind of a better view of it. Look at this fucking cool ass robot arm. Like, look at how, like, they've got the ligaments and the way that the bones in a real forearm, your bones can twist around over each other. And, like, the way that that's represented here, it looks so good. It's such a cool prosthetic. I really like it. It's very simple, but, like, it's just got such a nice, cool, dynamic feeling. Like, it looks bendable even if it isn't, which I really appreciate. I think that's cool. It's a cool prosthetic arm. It really is. Right. Anything else here worth talking about? Not really. I think we covered most of it. Yeah, there's some Jet Set Radio vibes here. There's definitely Jet Set Radio vibes here. Oh, man, wouldn't that be fucking cool? Wouldn't that be fucking cool if Riot put out like a Jet Set Radio style type game, like a game that's sort of the same kind, but you play as these kids. That would be fucking cool as hell. Fuck yeah. Not gonna happen, at least not yet, but, you know, if you bother Riot Forge about it enough, maybe, maybe they will. Oh, Drau Insiru, hey, Sky, just finished watching your last video. Thanks for uploading and making awareness of it. That's all. Enjoy a relaxing Saturday. I will try. I will try my best. The girl on the right looks like Killjoy from Valorant, which I like. Yeah, there's a little bit of that in there, isn't there? Like, there's a little bit of that more... And that's also aided by the fashion of these kids. Because, like, their fashion isn't, like, modern as such. Like, it's not like it's like modern street fashion, but there's definitely influences from it, right? Like, you definitely get the sense, like, especially with the hoodie that the girl is wearing, and, like, the round glass, and, like, the glasses that she's got on. Like, there is a more modern vibe to these characters. Like, that's much more rooted in something contemporary. Contemporary punk. And, like, I like that. I like that as a different vibe. I like that, like, where Piltover is this, like, Victorian Edwardian steampunk city where everyone is walking around in very fine dresses and suits and coats and, oh, yes, we are Victorian England. Like, everyone has kind of that vibe. I appreciate that Zaun is much more modern in its aesthetic, that it's much more, like, that it has more of that vibe of, like, youthful energy and, like, street culture to it, where, like, there's much more punk, there's much more graffiti, there's much more modernism down there. I think it's a cool way to differentiate the two regions. Anyway, here's Fun Yip dropping the what was it called, the Hexite crystal. As he falls through the air, the poor fool of a cat, with some kind of plans. I don't know if these are plans for the catastrophe that he's got going on down here, like if those are the drawings that he's got. Might be, because like I think the conclusion of his storyline is that he creates the catastrophe card, and that becomes like his ultimate form as he falls down. Anyway, not much to say here. Like, you can see how this character is highlighted, right? They're highlighted just by sheer strength of being white, like a very pure white blob of color in an environment where white colors just simply do not exist most of the time. And then there's, like, the bright light of their Rengar eye patch that they got going on there, and some edge lighting from the sun coming down from above. Like, it's all very, like, you know where the central character is here. And then there's the motion blur. Everything else in the image, you can see there's a directional motion blur applied in the direction of the foreshortening in the image, like in the direction of the perspective, because he's falling. But that motion blur is not applied to the cat himself or to the Hexite crystal he's desperately trying to grab for. And that also helps make him central in the image, because he's the only thing that's in focus. Moving right along to Ripper's Bay. Can anyone explain the eye patch? It's part of the lore somewhere that he gets an eye patch at some point. I can't remember why it happens. I must say, like, unlike Nikrit, Nikrit knows a lot more about Fun Yip than I do. I was sort of not that interested in the character. Like, I think he's fine, but I'm not that bothered. But yeah, Fun Yip is a science. Well, actually, we can find him. We can find Fun Yip for you, and you can see what he looks like when he is not. There we go. That's Professor Fun Yip, who is making this robot machine thing. And that is the cat whose body he's eventually going to inhabit. And what happens is there's a magical accident of some kind where he swaps brains with the cat, so now this guy's brain is inside there, and the cat's brain is inside this lanky scientist dude. And it's kind of funny. It's like a funny little body swap story, but that's about it. Where were we? Ripper's Bay. And I should check in with chat. How is chat doing? Oh, well, you're very welcome, Carolina. Yip has literally 5 times the lore of Fizz. Yeah, I mean, he has more lore than Shaco, he has more lore than Teemo, he has more lore than Rumble. He has more lore than a lot of champions, honestly. Have I seen that Reddit post about how 8 out of 9 recent male champions are shirtless? What are my thoughts on it? Like, like with everything else, like I don't really have like a blanket hot take on whether male characters should be shirtless or not. Like for a character like Viego, I think it works. For a character like Set, I think it works. Like I think it works really well that they are shirtless, because Set is like this Yakuza boss poser guy, right? Like he's doing the whole I am like the most powerful himbo in Ionia. He's doing that whole thing. So like that's fine. And with Viego, like his whole thing is that he's supposed to be seductive but toxic. Like he looks like sort of the wet dream of every YA novelist's female character, right? Like he looks kind of like the emo boyfriend that every teenage girl dreams about. Like that's kind of how he's designed to be. And so for me, it makes sense. Like, yeah, he'd be shirtless for no fucking, like, completely pointless as shirtless, but because that's the vibe of him, is that he's supposed to be seductive in that specific way. So that's fine. But, like, then there's characters where, like, it doesn't make sense. Like, Tryndamere, for example. I think it's dumb. Like, I think it's really stupid that Tryndamere is shirtless. Like, I think that it just plays into this, like, shirtless barbarian trope, which is, like, 4,000 years old. And I don't, like, it doesn't do anything for the character. I think he would be much better off being dressed. And then, like, maybe when he goes berserk, you can have him, like, tear his clothes off and do, like, if you absolutely must. But characters like Tryndamere, fucking, like, it doesn't do anything. Akshan also, like, Akshan, again, is a character where the point of him is that he's supposed to be this seductive, roguish, like, he's supposed to be an Aladdin character, right? He's supposed to be seductive, he's supposed to be roguish, he's supposed to be that, like, charming rogue who kind of disarms you just because he's so handsome and nice, and like, and he knows it and he uses it. So like that's fine. And then there's Silas, for example. Like someone asked about Silas in chat. Is like, yeah, why is Silas still shirtless? Like, why is he shirtless at all? Why was Silas shirtless in prison? Why? Like, why didn't they give him a shirt? Like, I don't understand why they didn't give him a shirt. It seems very silly, and it's one of those character design decisions that prioritizes making him sexy over fully really telling the story of the character. Like, it sort of tells the story, the idea of him being deprived in prison. Like, they only give him pants. They only give him foot wraps. That he's like this like sort of dejected prisoner. But then they also make him like swole, like he eats 12 tons of protein a day and hits the gym for 8 hours, you know. Where it's like, what's the storytelling supposed to be? So, like, I don't have a blanket hot take on shirtlessness. I don't have a blanket hot take on it. It's like, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and I don't like it when characters are made sexy just to be appealing, and not because it makes sense for the character. So, someone in chat said sex sells. Am I gonna have to go on my sex sells rant again? Am I gonna do that? Am I gonna go on that rant again? No. I'm gonna leave it. I'm just gonna say it's more complicated than that. Anyway, let's talk about Ripper's Bay. So landmarks are interesting as artwork in this game because, like, they're not about characters usually at all. Landmarks are, well, they're landscapes, essentially. They're sort of landscape paintings, except they're not really landscape paintings. They are paintings of things as characters. They're paintings of places as characters. So, looking at the Buried Sun Disk, for example. Like, yeah, it's supposed to be this landscape painting of Shurima looking out over the thing, as we sort of like, oh, this is what the Sun Disk looks. But the character in the image, the subject of the image, is still like the structure, the building itself, the fallen sun disk, and like these like pillars that used to hold it up into the air. Azir for scale, but like it's still a character piece about the place. It's not like a landscape painting, it's a character piece about the place as a character, which is a different thing. So Ripper's Bay. There we go. What's the character of this place? Like, it's not just about, this is a landscape painting of some place in Bilgewater. No, this is Ripper's Bay. This is the place, Ripper's Bay. What is it like? Like, what's the nature? What's the character of this place? And that's where, again, we look at how are they framing it? How are they using the light? Like, what are they making important in the image? And there's two things that are important in this image. Shipwrecks and these motherfrickers. These little soft-nosed monster fish with their red glowing eyes and their giant teeth, which is why we see a little bit below the waterline here. So we can really get a look at, like, just how awful these things are, and yet there's just fins and fins and fins and fins and fins. Like, these bright red fins poking up out of the water, like, really contrasting with the sort of azure and seafoam green. So you really you get a sense of, like, holy fucking shit, it's called Ripper's Bay because of these motherfuckers. Like, it's Ripper's Bay because these things rip you apart. If you touch the water here, you're fucking dead, right? Like, you get the sense of that. But you also get sort of, at least this to me, I get sort of a sense of this is a little bit of nature reclaiming its own. Like, it's about, like, the impermanence of Bilgewater and its culture, because we have all these mighty vessels here with their giant harpoon guns and their fancy masts and, like, their sails and everything, just kind of reduced to these broken skeletons dashed on the rocks. It's also an image about the power of nature, the power of the sea, the danger of the sea in Bilgewater. That's the character that's being told here, is that, like, when you are in Bilgewater waters, like, you're one step away from death at any given point in time. The ocean can and will decide to destroy you. You know? The seagulls are LeBlanc, yeah. All the seagulls are LeBlanc. Mais oui, c'est vrai. Let's see. The Shadow Apprentice is not new, I believe, but the Sharkling is. And I love the mouth on this thing. Like, I really like the mouth design on the Sharkling, because it's almost like it's a paper bag that's being opened up, right? Like, this is a weird design for a mouth, because it looks like it doesn't have a jaw. Like, it looks like it's just this tube that's, like, rimmed with these massive teeth that just kind of opens up, almost like more like a worm than like an actual boned fish. And it's just a scary ass mouth right there. I guess just like, you don't want to see that. You don't want to encounter that. You don't want, like a lamprey. Yes, someone points out in chat, like a lamprey. Someone else says it looks like a vulva. I will say, if you've ever encountered a vulva that looks like this, you may want to check that the person you were having sex with is actually a person and not an alien. But yeah, it's and the mouth, by the way, is the main character of this image. Like, this giant open rows of teeth mouth is like the main character of the image. There's a body attached to it, but it's not really about that. It's about this giant, scary, terrifying mouth, is what it's about. And I like that. So, color contrast. We have this very bright red on the fins of this fish creature and on the gills, but we also, the fish creature itself is like shades of blue, and it's shades of very cold, sort of very saturated blue a lot of the places, and that creates a contrast with the visual aesthetic of the rest of the place, because everything else here is green. It's all like seafoam green and kind of teal or turquoise, maybe. But this thing is like bright azure blue, pretty much, which creates this wonderful contrast with the environment. By contrast, like, compared to that, these other fish, which are just kind of like colorless and silver with much less saturated red fins, don't stand out nearly as much as this terrifying thing does, which is another way that you can create a main character in the image. And it's a cool fish design. Like, it's a cool, like, long eel motherfucker that's just, like, clearly only designed to eat. Dun, 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 dun. Treasure Seeker. Let's go to Shurima for a second. I love this character. I like it. I like this character a lot. I like them. I think they're cute. I think they're adorable. I think they should be a champion. I want this character as a champion. This adorable little sand kitty Yordle. I want them. They're cool. They're cute. I love their design. I love their eyeliner. They're just great. This person's fine. But the real star of the show is the Yordle in the background, because they're adorable. They're wonderful. And I love them. Yeah, it's a Palico. Like, it's basically a Palico from Monster Hunter, a little bit. It's adorable. It's wonderful. But yeah, remember what we talked about earlier about framing? Yeah, here it's very, very painfully obvious, right? Like, here it's like you can, yeah, here's the frame. It's very explicitly built into the image. Here is the frame, and like this is how it's being used to frame the composition. And what's interesting about that is that the frame, from the perspective of a professional artist, it's like it's an excuse to do a lot less work, because you just kind of, okay, I don't want to have to paint this whole fucking image. Let's just, like, some dark and some brown. And we don't have to paint that. We only have to paint the bit that's here in the center. Good way to save some work. And also a good way to create a composition. So, storytelling in the image. If you were to look at this image with no context whatsoever, what's happening right here? Well, this character is pointing, and they're pointing while, like, sort of tapping this thing on the shoulders. What they're pointing at? They're pointing at that thing. So they are sending this thing to retrieve that thing. Pretty clear storytelling, right? I should get my VTuber back on screen. And then, as a secondary bit of storytelling, you have the Yordle in the background. And look at their expression, right? Look at the expression on this Yordle as they're looking at this thing happening over here. Like, what kind of expression do they have? They have kind of this tired, sort of like, oh my god, this again. Like, they're sort of anticipating that this shit is gonna go wrong, right? Like, you get the sense of, like, oh, here we go again. You get the sense of that. We'll read the description, we'll get to it, don't worry. Am I a professional artist? I used to be. Like, I don't think I can call myself that anymore. Like, it's been some years since I made my money from commissions, but yeah, I used to be for like 5-6 years. I made my money making art, comics, commissions, stuff like that. Anyway, returning to this. Interesting thing. Remember what we've talked about highlighting? Like the way that you use light to create a main character in the image? Interestingly, the main character of the image is not really this sand treasure hunter person. The main character of the image is this hand pointing a finger at the thing that's being retrieved and giving an order to the secondary character, which is this little sand critter. And that's a really clever way to do things in terms of doing visual storytelling, is to not highlight the face of the character, because like we talked about before, the human beings will find the face. They'll get there. They'll look at it, don't worry. So instead we highlight the hand and make that like the central piece of the image, so that it becomes the thing that ties everything together. The hand is pointing at the medallion that's being retrieved. The hand is issuing an order to the creature, and the hand belongs, of course, to this character. It's like, so it ties everything together. It creates this central point to which everything else is connected, and that's good composition, because like it creates really clear storytelling, and it creates like a really clear line of perception. Like you know how to read the image from that gesture. It's a really good gesture. So, anything else worth talking about? Like, I like the character design. Like, I like the character design on this character. I like the whistle. I like the whistle that tells us really clearly, oh, it's an animal trainer, right? Like, you just from seeing that they have like this whistle hanging around their neck and they're handling this animal, it's like, oh, they're an animal trainer. They use animals to do the thing of like checking for traps and stuff. Which is cruel, frankly, but, you know, whatever works when you're trying to survive, I suppose. So there's some good storytelling going on with them. I like the hairstyle. I like the braids and the... I don't know if those are dreads or braids. I can't really tell. I like the shoulder armor. It's a little unnecessary and kind of silly, but, like, it works for the character. Makes them a little ostentatious in a fun way. And it's a nice posture that they have, like the whole gesture of the body, like the way that they're completely kind of folded in on themselves, with like the legs really kind of tightly squeezed together, almost as though they're sort of getting ready to try and squeeze in there themselves, but they're a little bit too big for it. It's really good. It's really nice. Right. Okay, Davu, you're gonna go in there, grab that whatever it is, and you're gonna make us rich. Me rich. You're gonna make me rich. Got it? Also, if that's a trap thing, I'm real sorry in advance. Poor creature. You deserve better than her. You really do. Drinking some soda, which is a great idea, because now I'm going to burp. Anyway, someone asked if I was an illustrator or an animator. Occasionally both. Like, I didn't do a ton of animation work just because it's really time-intensive and it's hard to get paid for it. But I did occasionally do some animation work here and there. Right. I should get some tea at some point. Anyway, this is a Cersei hatchling. right? Like, this is what they look like when they're relatively new in the world, when they have only 1 health. So yeah, Cersei are terrifying. Oh, no, don't worry about me recording in here, Mr. Motorcycle Man. I'm sure your big, loud machine that you got between your legs is important. The Chain Warden in chat. It was at this moment Kevin knew he fucked up. Yeah, he knows. So, compositional tricks happening in this image. Look at this. Like, look at that. So, actually, I can show you this with another image. Let me see. I'll use another image to set this up. So, look at this Mage Seeker Investigator picture, right? We have Lux over here on the left hiding. We have the Mage Seeker there on the right looking for mages, presenting the Mage Seeker sigil. So, look at how they are separated in the image. There's this big, like literally just this big barrier right between them where Lux is hiding on one side, the Mage Seeker is on the other side. That does all of the storytelling for you, right? Like, you know exactly what's going on here because you have this... like, this character sort of squashing up against this barrier here, while this other character is, like, looking not at them, but just kind of looking in a general direction somewhere. The storytelling between these two characters is really, really clear, right? Like, she's hiding from her. Same thing happening here. You have this barrier. Unlike the Lux image, like the Mage Seeker image, it's not a direct barrier. It's not like this thing, this would prevent the Cersei from detecting them. But visually, in the image, there's the same storytelling trick going on, where you have this, like this barrier, this visual barrier between where the characters are and where the Cersei is looking. And the Cersei, as you can see, it doesn't have eyes. Like, presumably it detects people in another way. But it's kind of like looking over them and not really seeing them. So you get the same storytelling of hiding. Like, this storytelling of these characters, like, barely not being detected right now. They're like, holding her breath. Like, sort of just holding onto the guy's arm and be like, don't make a sound, don't make a sound. So you get this tension. Because unlike... let's go back to the Mage Seeker. Unlike in this image, right? In this image, we know that Lux is safe. Like, or rather, we know that the Mage Seeker can't see her, that she's completely hidden, and that she's not necessarily in any direct danger right now. The Mage Seeker is looking, but they don't have the scent. Like, there's not a lot of threat there. It's just a tense image where it's like, oh, I need to stay here until they go away kind of thing. The other compositional trick that's happening here is an intrusion. So we have this barrier, right? This barrier denoting the safe place down here where the characters are hiding, separated from the space where the antagonistic force is looking. Except, look at those claws digging in to the barrier. Look at this throat hanging out over the whole thing. Like, there's this invasion of the Cersei is like invading the safe space in the image where the characters are hiding. It's being encroached on. And so there is this extremely heightened sense of tension because it's like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Don't move, don't breathe, holy fuck. Oh yeah, I'm in the way again, fucking hell. Where can I put me if, like, to avoid getting... There. I'm a floating head now. There we go. There's this sense of like, oh fuck, oh god, oh shit, oh hell, oh damn, oh blood. Like that, where you know, like, they're not detected yet, but it's like, oh boy, like, it's not far away. Like, it heightens the tension. It heightens the sense of fear, of danger. Yeah, I'm covering the super chats now. I know. I'll move me around. This is just for now. Don't send any super chats while I'm down there. Actually, I can fix that in an easier way. There we go. Super chats are now going to appear on top of my face. But yeah, like, it's this little compositional trick that just, like, heightens the tension. The other thing, and going back to the Mage Seeker again, let's just jump back and forth. I wish I could open up multiple images at once. The other thing is, like, how much space does the Mage Seeker have in the image here relative to the other characters? Well, most of this side of the image is dominated by the character the Mage Seeker is talking to, right? And then all of this, like this third of the image over here, all belongs to Lux, right? That's all Lux. And the Mage Seeker only really has like a little third of the image that belongs to them in the center here. Denoted also like the bright white of Demacia being the Mage Seeker's color in this image, whereas this like golden sort of soft pink light that Lux is hiding under is her color. For the Cersei, again, to heighten the sense of tension and threat, what's the distribution of space? Well, these two characters are like barely squashed together in this tiny little space at the bottom right of the screen, like literally being stepped on by this giant Cersei. And then the Cersei itself takes up like a good 40% of the image, just like this giant hulking thing in the middle of the image. And it has this companion over here, which is also presenting a threat like over to the side there. So like all of this space right here, that all belongs to the Cersei. That's their space, and if you enter that space, you are fucking dead. As surely as you are dead if you entered Rek'Sai's space when we talked about her splash art. Like, so, like, there's this tension of, like, this oppressive feeling of, like, holy shit, these characters might survive by the skin of their teeth if they are extremely lucky, but there's no guarantees. Like, they're in desperate danger right now. And it's all just being created by the way that the characters have like the space distributed for them. How much space do they get to dominate? How much space do they get to occupy? Where do they get to take up space in the composition? All of that is what's creating the storytelling here, which is what's creating the sense of tension and fear. That creates the image for us. It's just really good compositional work, and this is like, generally speaking, all the artwork that's been commissioned for Legends of Runeterra has generally just, the compositions are always fucking immaculate like this. I love it. Right. Going back over here now. So that you can't top me anymore, Grayson. Weirdo. I feel it's worth noting that these guys kind of lean into some of the things you talked about in your Void aesthetics video once upon a time. Yeah, a little bit. Something I've talked about with the Void is that I would like it if their aesthetics were a little bit less animal and a little bit more sort of weirdly space, like weird geometry with teeth kind of thing. And these creatures are a little bit more like that. I guess I still think they're primarily animal, like, which especially we'll see with like Shai Hulud over here and this literal beetle. But like, I like that there's a little bit more of that sort of non-Euclidean geometry thing that they've got going on.